Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Soul Academy. Today's episode is called Hermeticism and is about the teachings of Thoth the Atlantean, the ancient Egyptian god of wisdom. There it is, Hermeticism. On the left here we have an image of Mercurius Trismegistus, or Hermes Trismegistus. And on the right here we have a construction containing many of the key symbols of Hermeticism. The one in the center you may recognize, the intertwining snakes. We still use this symbol as a symbol of medicine, but it actually dates back a very long way. So, before I go any further, I need to make this first thing clear. So the oldest god on record that brought us this knowledge is Thoth the Atlantean. That's the guy on the left there with the ibis head. You may have heard me speak of Thoth in previous episodes. And so today's episode really is about the teachings of Thoth. Later on in the Hellenistic or ancient Greek, we have this gentleman in the middle, Hermes. So this is an image of Hermes Trismegistus, who was supposedly an incarnation of the god Hermes. And Hermes is also, basically these are the same person, if I may put it that way. Hermes is essentially the Greek version of Thoth, who came along with all the same teachings and principles. And then after that, the Romans kind of rebranded Hermes to be Mercury. Okay, so the god of wisdom, Mercury. So Thoth was the architect of the pyramids. So the pyramids of Giza and probably other pyramids around the world as well. He was also the inventor of hieroglyphs. So we owe a lot to Thoth because he gave us writing, basically. Thoth also gave us principles about the nature of reality in the form of these emerald tablets. So on the left here we have an image of one of the emerald tablets. So these are essentially they're tablets. They're not made of emerald. They're made of a mysterious sort of stone that has this emerald color to it. It appears that some kind of chemical reaction or some kind of alchemy was utilized in order to preserve these tablets, to make them stand the test of time and resist the sands of time. In the middle here I have a computer graphic reconstruction of the tablet on the left, just to make it easier to see how the text reads. And if you're interested in this particular tablet, there is a book called The Emerald Tablet of Hermes, which contains various translations of this tablet into different languages by different people. So that book there is all about this one tablet. It just contains multiple translations of that. Okay. So, what is Hermeticism? So Hermeticism refers to a philosophical and religious system based off of the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, who was, remember, a reskinning of Thoth the Atlantean. And yes, Hermes Trismegistus was supposedly an incarnation of this ascended master, Thoth. So when Thoth died, according to the ancient texts, the ancient Hermetic texts, Thoth died in such a way that his spirit ascended, such that it is now simply present and accessible to all. So this philosophy, or this religious system, should we say, was around at around 300 BC to 1200 AD. So a millennia and a half of Hermeticism we had. After this year, moving into the medieval period and up to today, the word or the term Hermeticism refers to a more wide variety of philosophical systems that draw from the Hermetic writings, things such as alchemy, tarot, the works of the Golden Dawn and things like this. Okay. So, here we have three key Hermetic texts. I will talk about these a bit more later in this video, but the one I'd like to point out for now is the one in the center here, the Kybalion, by the three initiates. So the Kybalion goes through the 7 Hermetic principles, or the 7 principles of Thoth, which I would like to go through in this video. Okay, so what are the 7 principles? Well, the 7 principles are a set of statements that provide us with a description of reality. They tell us about the nature of reality and how it functions. And so, yeah, each statement is a claim about the function of existence. Thoth referred to something called Atum, or the all. So this, the word here is monism. Monism is to believe that there is one thing, and that people turn this one thing into many things with our language. And so we kind of see all of existence as a sum total of all of the things that we made. But in truth, there is only this one thing, and that there's no division between anything in existence, right? So that is Atum, that is the all, as it is mentioned in the Kybalion. So all of these 7 principles describe the all, and they come together in a kind of holistic manner to bring us an understanding of the nature of reality and how it works. Okay, so there they are written on the right. So there's your condensed version of the Kybalion. It's worth mentioning that this book here, the Kybalion, Hermetic Philosophy, in the middle here, this is the centenary edition. This is like a 100-year-old book. And it's a book about the Kybalion, right? So we don't have the original Kybalion like accessible to the public. I mean, maybe they've got it in some library somewhere that I won't mention. But this Kybalion book gives us an overview. And I believe that the overview is sufficient for us. It's not the whole story, and I would love to see all of this. You know, when you start doing work into the ancient texts, it becomes apparent just how much is hidden from us and how little we have access to. There is still plenty to read, mind you, but you very quickly come across some big walls, some barriers to overcome. Certain books are very difficult to get hold of, very expensive, and so on. Okay. So, with all that out the way, I'd like to go through these 7 principles of Thoth, one by one in order, and talk about their meanings, what they mean to me, and how they've helped me in my life. So, without any further ado, let us begin with principle number 1. Principle number 1 is the principle of mentalism, and it states that the all is mind, that the universe is mental, and that everything starts with a thought. And this is true for you and me, and this is true for the heavens and the Creator. Okay, all is one, and we are in the all, and the all is in us. However, that's really talking about the next concept. But it's worth mentioning now, because I really want to get this idea, I really want to hit this idea home that mentalism doesn't just apply to your mind, it applies to all of reality. Okay, so thought precedes every manifestation without exception. We may consider everything in existence as a consequence of a wish, which, for better or worse, came true. So mentalism is not to be confused with the entertainer illusionist mentalism. That is a different definition of the same word. I've written here at the bottom that the all is an infinite mind where an eternity occurs in every moment. Right, so if everything in existence is some kind of simulation that's being processed by a processor, that processor is of infinite capacity and infinite speed. So that's the all, that's mentalism. So consider that everything that you do starts with a thought, right? Thought precedes your actions, thoughts precede your words. And also then consider that the existence of Earth was an idea before it became reality. Right? So really, like, this is saying that the all is a mind, that the Creator is like a person, or maybe it's more accurate to say that the person is like the Creator. Okay, so that's mentalism. Principle number 2, we have correspondence. This states, as above, so below, as below, so above, which you may have heard. The spiritual and material realms are one and the same, and the realms of existence are coexisting reflections of one another, right? So this talks about the fractal nature of the universe, right? That if we were to keep zooming in or we were to keep zooming out, we would see these common things occurring. So orbiting electrons within atoms correspond to orbiting moons around planets. And that the human mind, for example, corresponds with the mind of the all, the mind of Atum. And so correspondence says, it states that the laws governing existence apply to higher beings every bit as much as they apply to you and me, and every bit as much as they apply to bacteria, right? And this is a timeless truth, right? No matter the place, no matter the time. So, if the universe is in us and we are in the universe, and there is this kind of holographic, fractal nature to existence, then by changing ourselves from within, we are actually changing the wider universe. This would imply that making your bed in the morning actually alters the all, right? As opposed to not doing that. So yeah, this principle was of particular importance to the alchemists, as it was a means for them to suppose things that they otherwise would not be able to suppose, right? So they could take concepts on our earthly plane and apply them to wider realms of existence that we don't have access to. Okay, so that's correspondence. So we've got mentalism, correspondence. Next up, principle number 3, we have vibration, which states that all is in motion, that nothing is still, and that everything is vibration. Okay, so really what this is telling us is that matter, solid things, is an illusion. It's an illusion of the human sense. And that the all, the universe, is a symphony of harmony and dissonance, right? Also, things like resonance and reverberation, these are all qualities of vibration. And principle number 3 simply states that everything is vibration. We could also see harmony and dissonance as a consequence of order and chaos. So we may either resonate with existence or we may be dissonant with our existence. And if we resonate with it, then we're more in order. And if we're dissonant, then we create more chaos. I would say to be careful not to become one of these people who attempts to exist entirely in harmony with nature and develops a kind of allergy to dissonance and an allergy to chaos. I think this does harm to one's resilience to avoid dissonance. One moment. Imagine a symphony that contained no dissonance whatsoever, right? It would just be this kind of crashing major chord for the rest of eternity. Okay, so that's no symphony at all. That's not a good piece of music, right? We do need some kind of dissonance to complement harmony, right? We need some kind of tension to then have release, for example. And really, like, these principles are not telling us anything about how we're supposed to behave, right? These are just statements about the nature of reality that come from before history. Okay, so next. Principle number 4, we have polarity, otherwise known as duality. Okay, so everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same, identical in nature, but differing in degree. So the Kybalion says that apparent truths are half-truths, that heat is more or less hot, or should I say hot is more or less heat. Bright is more or less light, right? So cold is just, it's not the opposite of hot, it's just less heat. Okay, darkness is not the opposite of light, it's just less light, right? I've also written here that drive, in a human sense, is more or less life. To have that willpower is to have life. So, if we understand the many scales upon which all things dwell, we can find within each of them a reconciliation of a paradox. That is something that is stated in the Kybalion. So here it's about, a lot of this is about getting your definitions correct, right? So, I would put right and wrong on a scale, and I would put good and bad on a different scale. And therefore, the concept of good and evil seems to me like a skewing of those two variables, right? That it's good and bad, and evil is doing wrong, so the opposite of evil should be right, right? There are many ways in which we do skew these scales, where we misunderstand what exists on each side of these scales. Okay. So this principle of polarity tells us that there are two sides to every coin, and we may know these two sides in a broader sense as the yin and the yang, so the light and the dark. And according to Hermetic philosophy, this is also the masculine and the feminine. So these are like fundamental polarities exist. I have here written that which is given and how it is received. So this is something that I've mentioned in a previous video. That refers to the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, which are a part of this polarity, or the polarity of Atum, the polarity of the all. Okay, so next we've got rhythm. So time does not move, yet we move through time as living entities. Existence unfurls in rhythmic cycles. Each one of these cycles is a unique repetition. So this is the practice of the all. Everything flows back and forth. All things rise and fall. As the tides roll out and in, rhythm compensates. I believe the Kybalion says it as the pendulum swings from left to right, rhythm compensates. Thoth himself was a master of cycles, and great wisdom lies hidden within this particular principle. For to resonate with the cycles of rhythm is to demonstrate an understanding of the vast scales of time in which these repetitions occur. So, if people around you were unaware of the cycles of the year, but you were, then it would seem to the unaware people that you could predict the future, because you'd say, okay, look, the leaves are brown now, so soon this area will be frozen. And if you weren't aware of this cycles, you'd say, wow, like this guy predicted that we were going to have a frozen land, and look how it's frozen. This guy can see the future, right? But we all know that winter follows autumn, and that's knowledge of the cycles, right? So by understanding these various cycles of time, we can make wiser choices, right? So we can say, oh, it's probably a good idea to buy a warm coat in the autumn because winter's coming, something like that. So I've got some examples here of rhythms that exist throughout the all. We have the spinning of particles, which is extremely fast. Perhaps that's more vibration than rhythm. Perhaps rhythm and vibration are essentially one and the same. Rhythm is basically very slow vibration. I've got the rotation of the Earth, so the daily cycle is a rhythm. We've got the phases of the moon, which is the monthly cycle. We've got the annual cycle, right? And then we have other things like the precession of the equinox, the dawning of new eras, the rotation of the galaxy. And these rhythms extend on ad infinitum, right? There are longer and longer rhythms that we as people are unaware of. So prudent action invariably arises from a well-honed understanding of resonance with the cycles of time. Basically what that means is if you exist in a cyclic fashion, if you are running a business, for example, and you have an annual cycle where you have different chapters throughout the year, this will be a wiser course of action than to not observe rhythms, cycles of time. So that's principle number 5, rhythm. Okay, then we've got principle number 6, causation. Kybalion states, every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name of law unrecognized. And among the many dimensions of existence, nothing escapes the law. So really what this is saying is, it doesn't matter how powerful you are as an entity, there are consequences for actions, and you can't change that. That's a fundamental principle of the universe. This may refer to certain kind of karmic principles as well. So there are certain things that a person doesn't have the right to do under the natural laws of the universe, let's say, and that karmic consequences will come back to get you, right, later on. What I have written here is, dwell within the realm of effects and be enslaved. Dwell within the realm of cause and be free. This is something that I learned from a speaker known as Jim Rohn, who I love listening to. Basically, if you live in the world of effects, then everything's happening to you, and you talk about things as though you're a victim of circumstance, that you don't have control over what's going on around you. And this is why, like, self-pitying is such a weak position to come from, because if you're a victim of your circumstances, if you perceive the world in that way, then you're solely living in the world of effects, and you're not thinking about what caused that or what causes you can put in place to bring about different effects. Right? So that's living in the realm of effects. If, however, we dwell within the realms of cause, if we live in this perspective, in this mindset of causes, then we're thinking about, okay, this happened. Why did that happen? Oh, that happened because of this thing. Well, then what will I do next time to change that outcome? Yeah. So, my crops died. Why did my crops die? Oh, well, they dried out. Okay, well then next year, what will I do? Okay, well, I'll water them more, or I'll shelter them, or something like that, right? So that's then dwelling within the realm of cause. And let me tell you something, my life immediately started to improve when I decided that I was going to think in this way. I was going to consider the choices that I've made, and how to create my own reality based on my own choices. There is a kind of time lag to this, right? So remember, rhythm, the cycles of time. If I put something into cause, so if I create a cause, the effect will take some time to come back to me. So drawing from the crop analogy, if I plant seeds in the winter, then I may have a harvest in the autumn or something like that. So yeah, here I've written about becoming a victim of circumstance and how that's a problem. If you find yourself defeated by your circumstances, take new steps to transmute your failures into success. If you find yourself fantasizing over imaginary rewards of which you wish to attain, then visualize their potential causes. Right? So if you have some dream, like, I want to live in a castle or something like that, right? picture yourself in that castle and imagine, like, what happened for me to get here? Who am I now in this castle? How did this happen? And the answer may come to you, right? So it might be like, oh, um, I released a book and it sold very well. And so I made a chunk of money, and then I bought this really cheap castle in Scotland that someone was flogging off. I bought it outright at an auction or something like that. Now I regret my decision because it's cold and gusty and there's no electricity in here. I don't. Anyway, so without causes, effects will not and cannot manifest. So that's that. That's cause and effect. I've used the principles of cause and effect to change my behavior somewhat. I mean, a simple one is dieting. If I go to the shops and I buy the food that I eat. So if I don't want to eat cake, then I remind myself when I'm buying cake that I don't want to eat cake, so I don't buy it. If I don't buy it, then I don't eat it. The same applies for something like smoking, right? If I don't want to smoke, then the way to stop smoking is to stop buying cigarettes at the shop. If I don't buy them, I won't have them. If I don't have them, I won't smoke them. Okay. Now, that's not the only way, but you can see how this principle of causation can be a very powerful thing in a person's life. Okay, finally, principle number 7, we have gender. Oh boy, this is a hot button topic today. So, the all is one. Existence is one fully interconnected circuit of energy moving from the masculine anode to the feminine cathode. Right? So anodes and cathodes in electrical terms are, by definition, masculine and feminine, because in effect the energy, electricity, gets transferred from the anode out of the anode and it gets accepted in by the cathode. So gender exists in all things, on all planes. It is the source of all genesis. This is the G of the Freemasonry symbol. It is an eternal truth at the source of all birth and generation. That which energy emanates from is masculine, that which receives it is feminine. A person's sensory perceptions, for example, are feminine, whereas a person's speech is masculine in this context. Okay, so I've spoken about this in a previous video. Each and every person, regardless of their sex, contains an unending well of masculine and feminine attributes within them. And every action and manifestation occurs as an interaction between these masculine and feminine principles. What else can I say about gender? If you have a male sperm and a female egg, when these come together, they create another person, life. If we take into consideration this principle of correspondence, then a feminine attribute within me amalgamating with a masculine attribute within me will also bring about a kind of life. It will create something. So, for example, I could visit loads of art galleries and museums to charge my creative batteries, adhering to the secondary feminine principle. And I could then take all of that influence and inspiration and use it to create artwork. That is a combining of masculine and feminine principles in order to generate something. to give birth to something, in a sense. Okay, so those are the 7 principles of Thoth. And if you want to read some more about these, there are 3 key Hermetic texts that I would recommend. We have the Kybalion, which basically goes through these specific principles and their meanings. We have the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean, which is a channeled text by Doriel, this mysterious Doriel. And these are supposedly the words of Thoth himself. Now, whether you believe that this channeling is genuine or not, I find it a beautiful book. I really do. I really love the language, and I really feel the message of that book. Personally, I find it a great read, regardless of its, how could I say, legitimacy. Then we've got the Corpus Hermeticum, which is a collection of Hermetic texts. Now, this has a kind of historical legitimacy, this Corpus Hermeticum. However, much of it that I read, I feel is tainted by systems of control and religion. And in a sense, the more cryptic channeled text seems to be more accurate to the spirit of Thoth the Atlantean than the Corpus Hermeticum, but that's just my take on it. Also, a couple of other things for further reading, if these Hermetic principles are of interest to you. We've got Alchemy and Mysticism from the Hermetic Museum. This is a wonderful book that takes you through the meaning of a lot of alchemical symbology. And it's really a wonderful thing to develop some symbolic literacy, because without it, you don't know what any of the symbols mean. They just look like, shapes on a wall or something, and often you don't even notice them. After you develop a bit of symbolic literacy, you start to understand the meanings and origins of a lot of this stuff, and then you start to see it everywhere. Particularly in the UK, this place is filled with Hermetic symbology. It's all throughout our sigils and coats of arms and rituals and things like that are built into our history. So yeah, Alchemy and Mysticism. It's a pretty important compendium of the philosophical art that is alchemy. And finally, something I'd recommend if you're interested in this is the Natural Law Seminar by this gentleman, Mark Passio, here on the right. Mark Passio is a great teacher, I think, and he's really put this stuff, he's got his own take on it, and he really lays it down very clearly and unapologetically, as is his style. And the Natural Law Seminar itself is very long. It's maybe something like 8 hours long. So it's not something that you just sit down and watch in one go, but it's kind of split into chapters. And, I really recommend listening to what he has to say. Many of the things he says may challenge your ego. They may be a challenge to you. But I would advise to not be reactionary when you hear his blunt tone. He's really just about telling you how it is. So it's not worth getting angry with him. Don't shoot the messenger. Like, if he tells you things about the nature of reality that make you feel uncomfortable, then perhaps there's some work that needs to be done within yourself. Perhaps you're not angry with Mark Passio, that you're angry about something else. Okay, so that's my very brief run through of the Hermetic texts and the Hermetic principles. And I'd like to leave you with this final symbol here. So It's been written, I'm not sure who by, perhaps Thoth or Hermes, that the master key is a circle in a square, in a triangle, in a circle. And when you put these together, you get this image here on the left, which has become known as the philosopher's stone. And we can see this in various pieces of Hermetic artwork. Like, for example, on the right of this image here, we've got an example of the philosopher's stone there. Now, it is not explicit in the texts about the rotation of these objects. And I noticed that the circle in the center does not have the same center as the wider circle around the edge. And this is because people insist on drawing an equilateral triangle when they draw a triangle. But it doesn't specify what kind of triangle is to be drawn. It just says a circle in a square and a triangle in a circle. Well, anyway, many years ago, I had something of a vision, a visual representation of this philosopher's stone, and I saw the central square rotate 45 degrees, as a key would rotate. This is the master key, after all, to form this shape on the right. And after creating this construction, it became apparent to me that when you do this, the circle in the center and the circle around the edge now have the same center point. Although the triangle is now no longer equilateral. And it was surprising to me, after drawing the circle and the 45-degree square, and drawing the horizontal line going across the bottom here, it was surprising to me that a triangle could be formed within this circle. It seems to make a geometrical sense that I don't fully understand. But it's not really an idea that I had. It's just something that I saw once while drifting off to sleep. So that's that. I don't know if it means anything to you. Maybe this is some kind of heresy to people that are fanatical about the philosopher's stone. I mean no offense. It's really just something that I've seen. It's the master key. So those are the 7 Hermetic principles. They've certainly helped me throughout my life to, first of all, appreciate that there is a wider reality that I'm a part of, and that it has these timeless, true behaviors to it that don't change. Right? There are certain timeless truths. And each of these 7 principles, after having observed them and lived for many years, they all seem sort of kind of self-evident to me at this point. And over the years, it seems that perhaps a lot of our technological discoveries within our current culture are in fact rediscoveries of fundamental principles of existence that ancient civilizations were aware of before us. Okay, and really, like when we look at some of the ancient structures, such as the pyramids or places like Göbekli Tepe or Teotihuacan and these kinds of places, it's apparent that some of these ancient civilizations that exist before history had some seriously advanced technology that is seemingly beyond our current technology in many ways, in some ways. And I'm sure that our current technology surpasses the technology of the ancients in other ways. But technology the development of technology operates sort of like a tree. You get the tech tree in computer games where you have like branches of technology coming off. So, for example, you might start with something like the invention of paper, and then from the paper you then get the scroll, and then from the scroll you then get the book. Or maybe you would get like metal forgery, smelting, and things like that. And so from smelting metals, you then get forgery, and then you get the creation of tools and things like this. So pieces of technology kind of depend upon each other, and it seems that ancient cultures had further developed branches of the technological tree that we don't have, and that we now have different branches of the tech tree that we're more advanced in. So we can send emails to each other, and we have this amazing digital technology and radio and Bluetooth signals and things like this. But we can't shape stones like they did. You look at some of those ancient megalithic structures and the ways in which some of these giant walls are built and things like that. And I just think to myself, how and why, basically. Okay, so yeah, that's me rambling a little bit at the end of this. Thank you for accompanying me through this journey. Perhaps I did muddle through it a little bit, but there we go. I'm doing my best here. I'm just trying to get this information out there. And if it means anything to you, then great. I recommend studying it. Be aware that Hermeticism, or these principles that I speak about, refer to the nature of reality. They're not a set of principles regarding how a person is supposed to behave. And so they are a set of very powerful tools. So please use them respectfully and wisely. Do not use them to cause harm to others. Don't use them for selfish ends at the expense of others. Be free and manifest your own reality, and manifest a fair and just reality, so that you can be better than the people that have come before you and have made a mess of things for you to inherit. Okay, well, I think that's all I have to say on these 7 principles. So thanks again for joining me with this. And I will see you again for the next one. Take care.